Out of all the characters in Overwatch, one of my all-time favorite characters has to be Tracer. She's the wisecracking, croc-wearing speedster who's literally the face of Overwatch. But more specifically, I want to work out just how possible her recall powers are. But before we dive into that can of worms, we have to understand just who Tracer is. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Overwatch, here's a quick rundown of Tracer's origin. Lena Oxford, or Tracer, was a British pilot who was chosen to test a prototype teleporting fighter known as the Slipstream. And of course, as all origins go, things messed up in the last minute, and Tracer disappeared along with the Slipstream and 3 months later reappeared. The issue with this is that the newly reappeared Tracer was no longer synced to her flow of time, causing her to flow in and out of reality. Winston then gave her a chronal accelerator, which tethered her back to her flow of time, while also allowing her to control her new abilities, and Bob's your uncle, we have Tracer. If you look at her powers, one's actually pretty straightforward. She teleports forward in the blink of the eye, but that's not the one we're here for. No, we're here for her recall ability. Recall is her bread and butter ability. It's what makes Tracer, well, Tracer, and it basically allows her to zip back through time to whenever she was. But how is this even possible? I mean, unlike time travel where you go back to a previous point in time and might actually run into your past self, Tracer's recall is a lot weirder. She's able to move only herself back in time and restore her physical condition to that of what it was a moment ago. To put this in simpler terms, Tracer is able to move back in time 4 seconds while not affecting anything around her. A good example of this is during the Tracer and Widow cinematic. During the cinematic, Tracer gets poisoned and is able to recall without resetting the trap, while also retaining all of her past memories. And to explain how this all could be possible, we're gonna have to look at closed time-like curves. With closed time-like curves, we're able to take advantage of the fluid nature of space-time to travel back in time, without having to reach near light speed. This mainly works because it's not just speed that deforms time, but also gravity. Take a black hole for example. The space around it is so distorted, it's possible that it can loop in on itself and create a self-contained wormhole. This wormhole would allow you to travel back in time, and this is what we call a closed time-like curve. The issue then is just how Tracer is able to go back in time without everything else around her rewinding. I mean, after all, time and space are linked. The easiest way to explain this besides space magic is Tracer isn't traveling back into the past, but rather her information is. You see, unlike sending a whole person back in time, sending information back in time wouldn't nearly require as much energy nor as big of distortion in space-time. And this is exactly how Tracer's recall seems to work. You see, when she recalls, a distortion in space-time appears. And this is probably the formation of a black hole, which promptly collapses on itself, creating a self-contained wormhole, and this allows Tracer of the present's particles to travel back in time until these particles match the quantum state of the particles in the past, essentially creating time travel. This would be the end of the video if it wasn't for cloning theorem. Cloning theorem basically states that even though the quantum information can transfer from one particle to another, exact clones of these particles cannot exist. And this basically means that if Tracer of the present were to send their quantum information back in time, Tracer of the past particles would need to change in order for Tracer of the present to even exist. Likewise, Tracer of the present's information would then need to change in order to match Tracer of the past information. And this is the deadly cycle that Tracer gets stuck in. She would literally be stuck in an infinite time loop, having her particles change every 3 seconds until she is completely unrecognizable. But what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, stay awesome.